32 games down, so many set to go in the big tournament. We're glad you've joined us here for day 3 of the tournament. Hey, we work weekends around here. We're glad you're joining us for what's going to be a very busy Saturday. I'm Jared Smalley, set to take you all across Nexstar Nation. Our reporters are stationed in every tournament site across the country, all 8 of them, coast to coast. Just a handful of, I guess you'd call them moderate surprises so far. All of the elite seeds in each region have made it through round 1. We'll see if that starts to change a little bit today. We're going to start our coverage today in the South Regional, and we'll begin with the #1 seed in that region, the Virginia Cavaliers. And it didn't look great when they started out the other day against Gardner-Webb yesterday. They got a very sluggish start in the first half of that game, able to look like themselves in the second half. You'll recall Virginia lost their opening game a year ago in the 1-16 game. They were able to recover second half, and they pulled away, and the Cavaliers are moving on to round 2. They're playing in Columbia, South Carolina, and Samantha Waddell covers UVA, and she joins us there live now to talk about UVA and their performance getting ready for Oklahoma tomorrow in round 2. More on that in a moment. Samantha, Virginia was down 14 in the first half yesterday before coming alive. Was that win yesterday more mentally therapeutic than anything else?
Well, I think most of the guys didn't realize they were carrying the weight of last year's loss on their back, but they said after the game they felt a little more relaxed and a little relieved. Kyle Guy even saying he felt like the baggage was off, but he still got the chip on his shoulder as they get ready for tomorrow's matchup against Oklahoma.
Well, you think about what the Cavaliers did in that game. Obviously DeAndre Hunter is back healthy. He was the guy who was missing a year ago due to injury, missed the tournament. They sure missed him then. He had 23 yesterday to lead the charge. But again, Samantha, this is a team built on defense. #1 ranked defensive team in the country. Do they have enough offense to make a realistic run here?
I really think that they do have enough offense, and I think that they have the power. I just don't think that they've showed all of it yet. Each one of these guys seems to step up when somebody else is a little behind. You just look around. Kihei Clark showing up yesterday. Mamadi Diakite shows up. And so DeAndre Hunter and Kyle Guy and Ty Jerome, they've all got the power, and I think if they're all clicking on the same thing, they're a force to be reckoned with.
And it's a very good thing, Samantha, that Virginia, for their purposes, is really good on defense, because Oklahoma looked super strong,
yes,
beating Ole Miss in the opening round. They put up 95 points in that game. Maybe offense versus defense struggle tomorrow. Tell us what you saw in the Sooners and how Virginia can match up.
I really think it will be a massive offense-defense struggle. I mean, Oklahoma, no one expected 95 points out of them. They're certainly not the team that showed up at the Big 12 tournament, but there's something about them, and they said it's the madness of March. What do you expect? But I think that these two teams are going to be a powerhouse struggle. I mean, they both watched each other play. They both played in the Battle of Atlantis in December, so I think they're familiar with each other's styles, so I think it's going to be one of the best matchups tomorrow.
All right, we will be following that closely. Samantha Waddell joining us live from Columbia. Thank you, Samantha. We will talk to you later in the weekend. We're going to move on now with Michigan State. They endured a very tough opening round Thursday, and they've had some difficult opening rounds in the past over in the East Regional. They played Bradley, and it was a little tighter than I think they were expecting in the first half, but they did get it together, pull away. And later on tonight, they get an all Big Ten matchup against the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And we're going to go live now to Des Moines, Iowa, to talk with Audrey Dahlgren. She regularly covers the Spartans and the Big Ten as well, so you're going to see it all tonight. A sluggish start for MSU Thursday, admittedly. Tom Izzo very displeased. It was actually a national story, his displeasure in the game. Where did they find problems in that game?
Hi, Jared. Yes, welcome to Des Moines. The big thing, one of the two things I think that Tom Izzo pointed out after the game was he was really displeased, one, with the scouting report. He didn't think that they did a very good job at all, which led to some mental lapses. So, you think of turnovers. They didn't do a very good job with rebounding. And defensively, they just didn't look very good at all. And offensively, too, Bradley did a very good job of, making sure that they didn't get out in transition and run. So he was displeased with the scouting report. He wants to be better, thinks that they will be better against Minnesota in that aspect, just because it is a Big Ten team and they know them very well. The second thing is the effort. He was not happy with the effort. He thinks that they can give a lot more, but he also mentioned that a part of not having, you know, the way that they play Michigan State basketball is because of the quick turnaround that they had after playing so many games in the Big Ten tournament, a lot of minutes, so he thought some of his guys may have been fatigued as well.
I'll be following that. Obviously, that's a tough time for fatigue in the NCAA tournament. Not much time for rest there. Cassius Winston, National Player of the Year candidate. He pulled Michigan State out of the dysfunction a little bit yesterday, 26 points in that effort. It seemed, though, he was shouldering so much of the burden for Michigan State. A team that talented, you'd think they'd want to spread that out a little bit more. Take us through that. Is Cassius a little bit too busy right now for MSU?
In all honesty, no, because that's just Cassius Winston being Cassius Winston. He plays unselfish basketball in a way, but I mean, when he feels like his team is in the doldrums, he wants to bring them back up from it, and he'll do anything that he can. And the guys, I mean, it's not like they purposely, you know, wait for him to drive to the basket or take a shot. It's just that he just, in those moments, he takes over the game and he kind of feels the responsibility as being the point guard at Michigan State. You know, it's a position there that in the past, every player prides theirself, you know, at that position. Tom Izzo, you know, that's kind of like his right hand man, basically, the point how he feels the point guard should play. And so Cassius just takes that upon himself to play like that. He's done it several times this year. It's not the first time that we've seen him do it.
And he's good at it, too. Sparty won their only prior matchup with Minnesota this season. It was a blowout, 24-point rout. Do the Gophers have enough size to compete with Michigan State? That seems like that might be one of their issues going in here.
I mean, in all honesty, I think it's going to be a physical battle in the paint, and this is a matchup that Nick Ward and Xavier Tillman are really looking forward to. They said it yesterday that they thought it was going to be a really physical game, and I know Nick Ward's coming back from that injury, but it's a matchup that is more of his style versus in the Bradley game, because you had players that, some big men were in there, but you also had a lot of small guards. And so, I mean, with Jordan Murphy and Daniel Oturu, it's really going to give Michigan State some trouble, and this Minnesota team is playing a lot better than they were in that matchup in East Lansing back in February, and we saw that in the Louisville game. So it's going to be a battle down low in the paint for sure, both offensively and defensively for Michigan State. Yeah,
Audrey, it's always interesting when Big Ten teams or when conference teams play each other in the tournament. They know each other so well that can always make for some interesting results. Audrey, thank you for joining us live in Des Moines. Audrey Dahlgren joining us to talk about Michigan State and Minnesota coming up later on. Our next step is in San Jose, California, a South Regional game. What a start to the tournament for Oregon. The Ducks, I mean, you have to give them credit. They put forth an incredible performance in beating Wisconsin, advancing on to meet UC Irvine. How about a 12 versus a 13 game? That is the NCAA tournament. Somebody is going to the Sweet 16. To talk about that, let's have AJ McCord join us now. She joins us live from San Jose to talk about those Ducks. Starting with Oregon, AJ, second half yesterday, Oregon just seemed to make more athletic plays. They blocked shots. They got to the basketball. They rebounded the ball. Did they just find another gear in that game?
They did, but if you've been watching Oregon at all, you know that's kind of how they've been for this entire win streak. They're a second half team, and after the game, Paul White, redshirt senior for the Ducks, said, hey, when we came into the locker room, we knew that this was exactly how we wanted it to go. We wanted to hang tight in the first half because we knew we had more to give. Kenny Wooten in particular, he said they were ready to get him going in the second half, and so it was very similar to how Oregon won the Pac-12 tournament title game against Washington. Very tight at the half, and then Oregon just kept pulling away. So this team feels like, hey, if we can survive that first punch from our opponent, we have more punches than they do. And they certainly did. In Kenny Wooten especially, his blocking in the second half just got the crowd on their feet, totally defeated the Badgers, almost single-handedly, at least morally.
Yeah, I would say. You mentioned the win streak, obviously. That's up to 9 games now for Oregon. They went 4 wins in 4 days to win the Pac-12 tournament. Now a chance to get to the Sweet 16, which is rather remarkable. You kind of wonder, that's a lot of success very quickly for a team that had a lot of adversity this season. You wonder how they're handling that success. What's your impression from how they're doing with that?
You know, so much of March is this pressure to survive and advance, right? But Oregon feels like they've been surviving and advancing for weeks. That's how it was at the Pac-12 tournament, win or go home. And they knew their shot at the big dance required them to get to the Pac-12 tournament title game and to win it. And so they feel like they're doing great under pressure, and they're certainly not ready to go home anytime soon.
Well, if you think Oregon is on a roll, right? How about the mighty Anteaters of UC Irvine? They have won 17 straight games. Big finish to the game yesterday to upset Kansas State in that one. Okay, most of the country, admittedly, AJ knows nothing about Irvine. What did you see from them yesterday? How could they potentially match up with Oregon?
I think it's a great matchup for Oregon. I keep coming back to Kenny Wooten, but he really is the X factor for these Ducks, I think. Peyton Pritchard, their point guard, very, very good at controlling the game, controlling the pace, doing what needs to be done to help the team win. But Kenny Wooten is just an exciting shot blocker, and when he gets going, this team gets going. And so UC Irvine yesterday, I saw them against Kansas State. They're a great team, but I don't know that they're ready for that X factor. Now, the one thing I'm going to be very interested to see yesterday against Kansas State, every single person who wasn't specifically rooting for Kansas State was rooting for UC Irvine. We are in California, and they're the last team in California to be in the dance. And so this is going to be a really good crowd for UC Irvine, but the Ducks also travel well. So I think it's going to be a fantastic atmosphere. And like you mentioned, trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. Both these schools want that very, very badly.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the tournament, right? In a neutral site, when the team that isn't favored gets rolling and the building turns on them, it's a beautiful thing. You see it in every game. AJ, thanks so much for joining us there from San Jose. Look forward to following the Ducks and the Anteaters. Boy, it's an all-time nickname clash. We're going back to the South Regional now. Moving across the country here on the big tournament. Game to be played later tonight in Hartford, and it is a good one. It is the defending national champions from Villanova and the Purdue Boilermakers out of the Big Ten. Let's head to Hartford now, home of the mighty Whalers. Charlie Clifford joins us. Thankfully, it is not raining. You are not holding an umbrella. And let's get this out of the way right now. Since you have been in Hartford, how many times have you heard Brass Bonanza, the Whalers theme song? Have you heard it at all?
Not once, Jared. I have been flabbergasted all week. I thought we were going to get off the runway and be walking through the concourse, and there was just going to be a band blasting it for us, welcoming us to this fine city, but not a once. So hopefully that happens tonight.
That's a massive disappointment, but we'll let it slide. Let's talk about Purdue. Obviously, Carson Edwards. We keep talking about Carson Edwards, All-American candidate, had a big night Thursday in their win. Purdue seems to need, though, another guy to emerge and take some of the scoring burden off of Carson. He's obviously dealing with a back injury as well. Who could that guy be for Purdue today?
Yes, well, it needs to be someone, and this is a program, Jared, that's really embraced the notion, excuse me real quick, a little windy up here, old guys rule. That's Purdue's mantra. Get these guys in here, keep them for 4 years and develop them. The player right now, that is the prime example, Matt Harms, the 7-footer out of Amsterdam, just a sophomore. He is the best hair product guy in the entire NCAA. You're going to see it tonight. Just fantastic blonde locks, but 13 points in the opener. He can go up against anybody Villanova is going to put out there in the post, and he's just the heartbeat of this team. Fans at Indiana University treat him as if he's Christian Laettner. They hate this guy. He plays with the passion that if you're on his team, you love him, and if you're against him, you just despise him. You'll see that tonight. He embodies March Madness, and if Purdue's going to make a run, Matt Harms is going to become a household name, and he's just a great young man, and I think it would be great for college basketball if that happened.
And Charlie, a little inside info. I don't know if you know this about Harms. Is it a pomade? What is he using from a product standpoint?
Yeah, it's a clay pomade mixture.
Yep.
I think he gets it still from across the pond. So if you're going to order it up, do it online and wait 6 to 8 weeks.
That's a solid plan. And it's working for him. That's the truth. You talked with the Wildcats, too, yesterday from Villanova, a team, again, just off a national title last year. And even though they're a 6 seed, I'd imagine it's a team with a lot of confidence. They're playing somewhat close to home in this game. What do you expect out of the Wildcats today?
Well, as the locals have pointed out, look, this is still Big East country up here in terms of the old Big East. So tonight, the locals that are going to file in are going to pull for Villanova. UConn and Villanova have had a great relationship over the years. Jim Calhoun and Jay Wright, very close buddies. So this is a home game for Villanova. Matt Painter admitted as much yesterday. But for Jay Wright and the Wildcats, look, they're playing on borrowed time. This year was not supposed to end with a team that was making a run towards the Final Four. You lose Omari Spellman, you lose Dante DiVincenzo, and Phil Booth and Eric Paschal kind of step in and fill that void. And here they are again, Jay Wright's team's 14-1 over the last 4 NCAA tournaments. This is going to be a big test for Purdue. And we know this would be a huge win for Matt Painter's tournament resume.
Sure would be. It'd be interesting to see them get to the Sweet 16 and perhaps even further. That's a team that can do some damage. Charlie Clifford, I'm glad it's dry. I'm glad the conditions are better. And I appreciate you joining us. Thank you, buddy.
Jared, and we got to thank you for your quarterbacking skills this week. You've been a fine point guard, Aaron Kraft-like in the studio all week.
Wow. Now that is a compliment, sir. And he's going to medical school. So, I mean, that's too much praise. But I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks very much.
Smarter than both of us.
Yeah, I'm afraid so, buddy. We're going to stay in the South region now. We have not seen a ton of upsets so far, but one of those 10 seeds over a 7 seed, Iowa, earning another win for the Big Ten, knocking out Cincinnati yesterday, and the Hawkeyes are back for more. So with that, we're going to go to Columbus, Ohio, birthplace of sports legends like Jack Nicklaus and Randy Macho Man Savage. Adam Rosso joins us in Columbus to talk live about the Hawkeyes' run, which did surprise a lot of people, especially, Adam, considering the way they closed their season. Did that performance yesterday surprise you a little bit?
Don't sell your Buckeyes short either, Jared. You got to throw Urban Meyer into that mix. National champion winning coach, Woody Hayes. You can expand the list of the Columbus legends. But, yeah, I'll tell you what, I think the win didn't necessarily surprise a lot of people. 7-10 matchups can go either way, but it was the way the Hawkeyes came back and fought against a great Cincinnati team. Down 18-5, 7 or 8 minutes into the game. Fran McCaffrey saying after the game, the key to coming back was not panicking. They didn't have too much, pouting, too much problems in the huddle. Just stay the course, be businesslike, and slowly chip away. That's exactly what they did in the first half. They get it to a 2-possession game at halftime. And then in the second half, 63% from beyond the arc. Joe Wieskamp some big shots. Jordan Bohannon some big shots. They didn't get much from Tyler Cook. They didn't need it. And, of course, the big guy, Luka Garza inside, leading the way with 20 points. A very impressive comeback victory for a team that didn't play well down the stretch, but now, they're one step away from the Sweet 16.
And Garza also made headlines today, I noticed, for his eyebrows. People all over the country were talking about that intense stare of Luka Garza. You mentioned his performance yesterday, 20 points, but Tyler Cook, who's such a great player for them, was in foul trouble most of that game. I'm not sure they can afford to have that happen again tomorrow if they want to have a good chance, right?
Yeah, especially against that team of Tennessee. They got a lot of athletes similar to Tyler Cook. He's going to have to bring it on both ends. But the interesting thing about this Iowa team, they're at their best when it's balanced scoring, balanced rebounding, and obviously team defense. So you saw that yesterday. 4 players in double figures. Garza we talked about, Joe Wieskamp, the freshman, a great game. Bohannon, you know what he brings as far as his clutch shooting abilities. But hey, Nicholas Baer off the bench, 10 points, a couple big 3-pointers, some good defense in that, half-quarter, 3-quarter court trapping style that they played to really speed up Cincinnati offensively. So I was better with Cook on the floor and obviously better when he's putting up a double-double. But I will say they do have the balance, and we've seen it throughout the season that when they play the best, they have 3, 4, 5 guys in double figures. They're getting contributions from their bench guys, and obviously they're getting a big game from a guy like Garza or Bohannon to really lead the way offensively. Tennessee's a different animal, though, so yes, Cook has to be better, and he has to stay on the floor. He was on the bench when it was 18-5 because he was in foul trouble.
Right. He
can't do that on Sunday if they want to come out with the upset.
We'll be following that very closely because that's a very tough test for Iowa. Tennessee, number 2 seed. Admiral Schofield, tremendous game yesterday for the Vols, but it's a really balanced, physical lineup for Tennessee. How does Iowa try to match up with that?
Yeah, you said it. Balanced. They're veteran. They're big guys. Schofield, you have Grant Williams, and you have Jordan Bone. That's three really good players, three of the best players in the SEC. I think you saw a little preview of what Iowa needs to do to win yesterday from that Colgate team that gave Tennessee fits. 15 three-pointers, I believe, by Colgate. They shot the ball 50%, great from beyond the arc, much like Iowa did against Cincinnati. And then I think you can look back to some games throughout the season in the SEC that Tennessee lost to kind of get a blueprint for success. Auburn beat them twice by shooting the three-pointer and forcing them into a bunch of turnovers. LSU forcing a bunch of turnovers. Iowa's not necessarily great on the perimeter, but I think that three-quarter court trap that we saw yesterday is going to be big to speed Tennessee up, get some turnovers that maybe lead to easy buckets, because I don't think Iowa wants to play a half-court game against Tennessee, because you said it, they have too many weapons and they're really good offensively. It's a much better offensive team than Tennessee, which is going to challenge Iowa's defense that hasn't necessarily been very good all year. So Iowa's going to have to find a way to maybe manufacture some points and get some easy baskets to score with the Vols.
Game coming up tomorrow at Nationwide Arena. Adam, I'm glad the sun finally came out for you in Columbus. It's been a rough week there.
Yeah, I said that this morning. I said, hey, it's sunny. I don't care if it's high 40s, sunny. It's going to rain again tomorrow, so it's a nice day to be out here. We'll get inside and talk to both teams. We'll have some more coverage for that. So great host city. I know you love it here, Jared. So thanks for everything you're doing with this. It's been a great time here in Columbus.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome place, buddy. Great to have you with us, Adam. Great job helping us. You're watching the big tournament. Glad you're joining us here online as we continue to follow the big tournament, what all's happening across the country, matchups all over the nation as we get set for the round of 32 here. Going to go to the Midwest Regional now. Very tough day, a couple of days for the state of Kansas. K-State upset by UC Irvine in the first round, but the Jayhawks are still around. They're in the Midwest Regional, playing today in Salt Lake City. Sully Ingalls is there live for us now to cover that matchup. KU matching up with a talented Auburn team in round number 2. Sully, hey, KU looked strong Thursday. That's all you can say. Dedrick Lawson, we talked about him earlier this week. 25 points he delivered for him. They have the chance to get Kansas to the Sweet 16 in Kansas City. I'd imagine that'll have the Hawks quite hungry today, right?
Oh, absolutely. A chance to go back to the Midwest, back to the home. Kansas City is where they want to play. They're undefeated at home this year, undefeated on neutral sites. So if they can get back there, they're going to be feeling pretty good. But they got to concentrate on today. Like you said, a very talented Auburn team. A couple matchups that are really going to be tough today, too. You got Devon Dotson and Jared Harper, two really fast point guards who are just going to battle all day. Harper on the Auburn side, a little better shooter, but they're going to battle for speed, and it makes it a little tougher if Devon got a little ankle injury the other day. So that's going to be a tough matchup. And then down low, as you mentioned, Dedrick Lawson, he makes his team go. Double-double machine, 25 points the other night. His 21st double-double of the season. But he's matching up with Chuma Okeke, one of the best defenders in the nation, versatile, athletic. And that's one thing maybe Dedrick Lawson doesn't have going for him as much. He's not really going to jump out of the gym. He's not going to burn past anyone. So that's going to be an interesting matchup, especially on the offensive side, too, because Dedrick has a tendency to kind of slag off defenders, and Okeke will shoot the ball as well.
Let's talk a little bit about KU from a health standpoint. Sully, we noticed they had a couple guys who were nicked up a little bit in the first game. How physically prepared are they for today's game?
I think for a majority of them, they should be good to go. As I mentioned, Dotson kind of has that ankle tweak, but I talked to him in the locker room yesterday. He said he was a little sore, but he's feeling better. He should be good to go today. The biggest question is Marcus Garrett. He had flu-like symptoms yesterday, didn't practice, wasn't available, and he's really the glue guy for them. He's the X factor. He makes them go. He's a versatile defender. He probably guard about 4 positions, and when he's on the floor, they're just unequivocally a better team. He does a little bit on the offensive end, too, and if they can get some contribution from that, and he's healthy and good to go, they have a great chance tonight. So overall, Bill Self wasn't really worried about the health of the team. But those are two guys to keep an eye on, especially Garrett, because, up here in the elevation as well, you got to make sure you're hydrated. You got to make sure you're in shape, which, these guys are. But at this point in the year, you just can't those health factors just come into play so much more.
Certainly do. We'll be following that as a storyline for the game. And then you got Auburn on the other side of this thing. If you watched the SEC championship game last weekend, they could have beaten an NBA team. They looked so good beating Tennessee. And then Thursday, they looked really shaky in their tournament opener. Tell us what you saw from Auburn, how you like the matchup with KU.
I think that's the same thing. It's the same thing with KU all season. It's kind of up and down. Both teams are capable of beating pretty much any team in the nation if they play to their best capabilities. But on the other hand, they can have terrible, terrible nights and lose to just about anyone too. So I think the biggest question for the day is who's going to show up for both sides. If KU shows up, you know what you're going to get from Dedrick Lawson, but all the perimeter players, all the guards, the freshmen, if they can handle the situation and the atmosphere, they should be great. But on the Auburn side as well, their guard play is very, very talented, very good guys. So if they show up and they play like they did in the SEC tournament, they'll probably walk away with a win here today. So I think it kind of is you don't really know until they get out on the floor, you really get the rhythm of the game going. It's going to be a big question going into the day.
We'll be following that game very closely. A lot of KU fans around the country, and for good reason. A great program. Sully Ingles, really appreciate you joining us there live from Salt Lake City today. And we're going to move on from one blue blood program to another one, Kansas to Kentucky. We'll stay in the Midwest regional bracket here and show you what it looks like because, look, Kentucky is the 2 seed, right? They're favored to get to the Elite 8, maybe even get to the Final 4. They're going to get a unique challenge today, especially from beyond the 3-point line. And for more on that, let's go live to Jacksonville, Florida. Hey, we said coast to coast, right? We weren't kidding. Todd Summers joins us to talk about Kentucky and Wofford. And yes, we're going to lead with the Mighty Terriers of the Southern Conference, Todd. For people who have not seen Wofford play, maybe they just saw them play the game the other day. They've won 21 straight, and they shoot threes with incredible accuracy. Tell us about it.
Well, they shoot a lot of threes. They make a lot of threes. If you watch them on TV later today, you'll think, wow, that's not a great shot, especially if you watch Fletcher Magee shoot them. But he practices crazy shots where his body's contorted in all kinds of different ways, he says, because those are the shots that he knows he can get off at any time. He knocked down 58% of his three-point attempts in round 1. And then you got another guy named Nathan Hoover who can knock him down as well. He knocked down 57% of his threes. They got a point guard in Storm Murphy that if you leave him open, he can shoot the ball as well. And they balance it out with a big guy inside named Cameron Jackson. He's not real tall. He's about 6'6", but he's a wide body. So you have the inside-outside game. And let me tell you what, Jared, these guys can play. They've been the underdog in this tournament 4 different times. This year they're a 7th seed. They're going to be an underdog against Kentucky today, but this is a really good basketball team. They've won 30 games. They haven't lost since December 19th. Like you said, 21 straight wins, looking for 22 coming up today.
Well, you mentioned Fletcher Magee. We're going to show everybody what Fletcher Magee looks like shooting the basketball because it is a sight. He made 7 threes the other night, 509 in his record-breaking college career. That's most in NCAA history. How much do you think his threat genuinely concerns Kentucky?
It absolutely should concern Kentucky because he is among the best three-point shooters in the history of college basketball. We're talking J.J. Redick, we're talking Steph Curry, we're talking Fletcher Magee. He's that good. And I'm telling you, he doesn't have to be open to shoot the ball. He doesn't have to be right at the three-point line to shoot the ball. He can be 5 feet behind the line. It doesn't matter. He can shoot the basketball. An interesting story. I did a story on him about a year and a half ago. While interviewing him, I put a microphone on him, and I talked to him while shooting free throws. And I just kept feeding the ball back to him, while doing the interview. He made 102 consecutive free throws. He never missed. I ran out of questions before he ever missed a shot. It was unbelievable.
Now that is endurance, sir, on both parts, your part and on his part. That's a great story. UK, as you'd imagine,
Absolutely.
Looked very strong in the opening game, as they should have, against Abilene Christian. But they're playing without their top scorer. That's P.J. Washington. He will not play today. How will Wofford try to match up with UK's athleticism? That's a big problem so many teams have with UK.
Well, I was talking to Terriers head coach Mike Young yesterday, and he said, simply put, they're going to do what they do. They're not going to change things because Kentucky's taller or faster or more athletic. They're going to do what they do, and that's going to include starting out with the ball inside and Cameron Jackson, and an offense kind of runs through him early in the game, and then usually in the second half they kind of open things up and they start shooting the ball. But they're not going to change a whole lot because they're pretty confident in their system, in their setup. Now, keep in mind, they're in the Southern Conference, and they did win all 21 games against SoCon teams this year, But way earlier in the year, they played North Carolina, they played Kansas, Mississippi State, Oklahoma. Those are their only 4 losses, and they were all competitive games. So they've seen this kind of athleticism before. It's been a couple of months, but they'll be ready for this game. They've waited their whole lives to play against a team like Kentucky for the right to advance to the Sweet 16.
That is great storyline setting up there for the NCAA tournament for Wofford and Kentucky. Todd Summers, thanks so much for joining us there from, man, that looks so nice in Jacksonville. I gotta be honest. That's just a beautiful setup. Thanks very much. And our final stop of the day, all 8 sites for the NCAA tournament are covered here today, going coast to coast like we said we would. Some great games out west. We're going to go to Tulsa specifically. We're going to talk about Texas Tech. They looked really strong in their opener against Northern Kentucky, the Big 12 co-champs of the regular season. We're going to talk to Paul Tubbs now. He covers the Red Raiders, and he joins us live from Tulsa to talk about their opener. I'm not sure what more you could ask for from Jarrett Culver. Homegrown Red Raider from there in Lubbock, 29 points last night. His last 3 games have just been sensational. Big 12 Player of the Year. He just looks like such an awfully tough player to defend.
Well, you know, one of the things, I mean, he's a lottery pick. We all know that, and it's been discussed at nauseum for the last few months here. And so he's putting up these numbers, but, you know, he'll be the first one, a very humble young man. That's the one thing about it that's pretty striking. If you know anything about Jarrett Culver, he actually comes from a really, really tight-knit family. 2 brothers, one of them an NCAA champion in high jump, the other one also a basketball player at the NAIA level. So these kids actually come from a family that knows what it means to be successful, knows what it means to be part of a team and be humble about it. And that's really what Jarrett's been able to do. He's been kind of a silent leader on the court, been able to do these things. Last year, he really just didn't step into his own because you also had some outstanding seniors, Keenan Evans leading the way for the Red Raiders as far as their go-to point guard. Zaire Smith, who is now in the NBA after his first year. So now this is Jarrett's show and an opportunity to really showcase himself and his talents and show why he is a lottery pick and been a great leader for the Red Raiders this year.
Yeah, he's been nothing short of sensational. If you've seen him at all this year, he's special. Tech made the Elite 8 last year. Really good program. And you wonder how Coach Chris Beard raised the expectations for Tech the last couple of years. What is he doing to get the most out of his team?
Well, I think he just demands so much from these kids, and he puts them in a mindset of being successful. These kids don't really know anything else other than going out on the court and giving it their all every night out. Any of these kids that you talk to in the post game, that was one of the first things that Lawrence Odiase said. You know, he's a senior. He's been a part of 3 different coaching staffs here, so he kind of knows a little bit about how Coach Beard is functioning and how he really appreciates his kids. He gets the most out of these kids. He doesn't feed them a line. That's the other thing. He's honest with them. If they're playing bad, he tells them they're playing bad. Matter of fact, a halftime speech to these kids in particular, he got onto them. I mean, they were up 30-26, but we're not playing the kind of basketball that Texas Tech Red Raiders are used to. And so Tariq Owens and Matt Mooney, both 2 great transfers, they weren't having the kind of game that they wanted either. And what did? They came out. Matt Mooney actually now has the record for this particular regional with 5 steals. Tariq Owens, 33 consecutive games with at least 1 block. He had 5 yesterday. And Coach Beard is just able to do that. He's alluring. He doesn't put up any false pretenses. That's one of the reasons why he's starting to get better and better recruiting classes. People are taking notice. Jamarius Ramsey, who's actually going to be coming in, one of the top-rated players in all of high school out of the Dallas area, is going to be coming to Lubbock this fall. And there's a reason for that. They want a chance to play for championships.
Well, let's talk about Buffalo, the opponent tomorrow, and by no means is this a layup for Tech. Buffalo has won 32 games this year. They've won 13 in a row. They routed Arizona State yesterday, looking really good in the process. Take me through what you've seen of Buffalo and maybe where they could give Tech some problems.
Well, you know, this is a high-scoring team. It's also a senior-laden team with Buffalo. C.J. Massenberg is really the leader for them. He was the MAC Player of the Year. putting up 18 points a game, actually had his average in the game against Arizona State. Now, one of the things that also kind of probably is overlooked here is the fact that Arizona State really did come into this game kind of tired. You know, they had just played in that first four just a few days before that, had to come in, and I really think that Bobby Hurley's team probably wasn't completely there, and an athletic team like Buffalo is able to take advantage of that. But you do have a lot of senior leadership on this team. They're very athletic, can move up and down the court. Now, they're used to scoring a lot of points. You know, they average somewhere around 86 points a game. Texas Tech, they're averaging, of course, holding defense. Their defense holds teams to about 59 points a game. So it's kind of a clash of two different styles of game, a very defensive-minded team in Texas Tech, a very offensive-minded team with Buffalo. So it should be a pretty interesting matchup, and we'll see which one wins out.
Yeah, Paul, we'll be following that game closely. Thanks very much, Paul Tubser, joining us live in Tulsa to talk about, well, one of the more intriguing matchups of this second round. That finishes the trip. All 8 destinations across the country. We've hit them all today here on our look across Nexstar Nation here, getting ready for the big tournament. I want to mention one other game I think is really interesting later on today. Again, in the West Regional, I love this Murray State-Florida State game. Murray State, one of the few teams in the opening round that scored a big upset, but it's only big by number. If you've seen Murray State play, tremendous NBA-type talent with Ja Morant leading the way for the Racers. Wouldn't be surprised at all if a 12 seed gets to the Sweet 16 today. We'll be following that matchup, just like all the other ones we will, and we'll be back here tomorrow at noon with one more edition of the opening weekend of the NCAA tournament on the big tournament. Thanks so much for joining us here across Nexstar Nation.